Yes, hello everyone. I'm Anja Atsinki. I'm a senior lecturer in Laurea University of Applied Sciences in Safety, Security and Risk Management program. I'm going to tell you a bit about our best practice article about event safety and in collaboration in that, which is done between authorities and organizer of the event. And basically the reason why we chose this case for this project was that the model that Southwest Finland's authorities have for preventing risks in events quite nicely follows the ISO 31000. And it's really important to understand that the standard it's a very useful tool in multiple occasions, and as an authority you can also use it and try to find like best practices to do risk management. So the case we are handling in the article is Ruisrock, which is one of the oldest and biggest festivals held in Turku, Finland, and it's a quite big festival, usually 3 days. There can be 100,000 people attending to the festival, and it's held on island in Ruissalo, which is a nature preservation area also, and of course due to the nature that only one road there and so on, it's also quite difficult to manage in the matters of safety and security. So the first part we are handling in the article is the communication and consultation part. So it's really important to understand that in most cases the resources for authorities are quite limited. So, and their actions are dictated by the law. But does the going according to law necessarily mean that you are doing the good risk management? Not necessarily. So in that matter, it's really important that also authorities take a good look at the risk management process and what they could improve and how they should do to actually to be able to manage all the risks, and what kind of collaboration and consultation should be done. And in many things, the responsibility naturally lies on the organizer of the event. So it's a quite big responsibility, and especially when you are talking about mega-scale events and really versatile risks, it's quite possible that the expertise in identifying risks, for example, isn't sufficient if you are just organizing the event. So you have to consult many different people to identify and being able to evaluate what is actually the risk and what is not, and what is the sufficient treatment for those. So that's why it's really good that authorities, they are also supporting this by giving their expertise for the organizer and giving consultation. In Finnish legislation, it's like that rescue authority is obligated to give consultation when asked. But of course, it's good to have that sort of framework ready for the organizer, so the organizer doesn't need to first to guess that, okay, what I don't know, that there is also people who are already there and telling that, okay, this and this and this needs to be taken under consideration. And in Finland, you have to return an emergency plan for an event at least 14 days before the event. So as you can already guess, it's not enough if there is significant deficiencies and such. So it's really important that communication and consulting is all year-round process and planned beforehand. So also about the scope, context and criteria, as I said, it's linked to the consultation and communication as well, because as I said, the risks are really versatile. So you have to be sure that in the group that does risk identification, there is enough expertise for those risks, and the actual people who know what they can do for those risks. And in this case, the risk assessment process it's like a funnel basically. So first the organizer gives the big picture, what is happening, what is program, what is the the general appearance of the area, what is needed, and so on. So on that, the risk identification can actually be done, and the magnitude of risks can be evaluated. And after that, there is still plenty of time to evaluate the measures and refine the plan before the actual event starts. And one thing I would like to highlight from this part of the process is that it's really important that all the parts who are taking part of this risk identification, they share the common criteria when they are evaluating what is the probability and what is the severity of the risk. Because of course there are like a different kind of point of views that what you are trying to, what is the value we want to protect. Is it a profit? Is it people? What it is? So if there is no common criteria behind that what is like probable risk or what is a severe consequence, so then it's not going to be reliable, the risk identification. And of course, because the whole evaluation the authorities do is based on that does the organizer give and reliable explanation that with these resources, with these measures, we can have a safe and secure event. So if the criteria isn't okay, so basically that wrecks the whole reliability of the whole risk assessment. So that is, on my opinion, the most important part of this. And of course, the things that needs to be also discussed is what is the risk tolerance, what is maybe risk appetite for organizer, and how the measures can meet the needs of those. So we are making sure that they are discussing about the same things and what is the ultimate goal. So that is also important. And beside of the risk assessment done by organizer, there is also another point of view to the risk assessment, and it's a risk assessment done by authorities. So the point of that is that if there is if the event is so big that it might have some effects on society or some effects on authorities' resources. That's if something happens, can they still do their everyday job, for example? So that is also a really important part. And even though it's not said directly like that in legislation, of course there is a sector-based legislation for authorities to dictate that what they have to do and what they have to be prepared for. But this is also a really good example on that what extra effort good risk management for the authority actually needs in this kind of situations. And it's really important that it's planned ahead. And then about the risk treatment processes, of course, they are a combination of structural, technical, and operational measures. And even though in the point of view the authorities, for the security service providers, the preventing crimes and stuff like that, it's quite largely dictated by the legislation. And police determines if the measures, for example, preventing crimes or something like that, is sufficient. Because, for example, do you need roadblocks or something like that? Is there a higher risk that is not so conventional, maybe? And of course, in addition to emergency plan, many other plans needs to be done. Some of them are related straightly to safety and security, and others are something else. But the most important is that all those plans and all those treatment measures and controls, they are consistent with each other. So they're like go together well, and there is no problems when people are trying to adopt those measures. And of course, the treatment controls, they have to like have 3 points of views. They need to address the risk identification in the preventive point of view. They have to be prepared and also be prepared to act if something happens. So those 3 points needs to be considered. And then monitoring and review, really important part also as in any risk management. So usually the official fire inspection before the event is done just before the event starts. So then everything is as ready as it can get. And of course, in bigger events, it's really common that you have like pre-inspections during the week when they are building the area up and so on. So if there is some major issues, they can be addressed before. And during the event, there is also on-site monitoring by the authorities, but also, of course, by the organizer. And they exchange information, and they have like many eyes. This is done by people and also with technical measures, for example, by drones. And then it's dictated by law that security service provider and health service provider, they have to keep a logbook about everything that has happened. So that is also really valuable information also for the next year's event. So then you can actually see what was going on and what happened there. And then after the event is done and everything is cleared up and so on, so every time there is a debriefing meeting where the organizer and authorities sit down and discuss and go through what happened, what were the lessons learned, and what we can take from this year and use next year to develop to be even better. And if something happens, what were the causes and consequences on that one? So really important part of the ongoing risk assessment process. And this is also really important to remember that in these kinds of annual big events, the risk assessment cannot be like something one time you do once a year, but it's ongoing and growing process. And this debriefing is a really important part of that one. And then the last part, recording and reporting, also highly linked to the previous one. And of course, this is also something that comes from authorities' processes. Highly, the minutes they are archived, and there is certain procedures what needs to be reported and recorded and so on. But for example, in this case, it includes fire investigation minutes, set event logs, what happened, what was going on, and all the other meeting minutes. And this is also important to understand that this dynamic and constantly improving emergency plan is also, in a way, a recording and reporting tool. So the goal is that the plan is evolving all the time. And it's also a really important aspect to remember that when we are speaking about event safety and security, then because everything is constantly changing. People are changing, the locations are changing, and authorities or the ones who are there are changing. So there are like many points where the information can get lost and it's not usable next year. So in that matter, if this part is failed, it means basically that you have to do so much more work next year if there are like maybe new people or if you change some service providers or anything like that. So that was a brief introduction on how we viewed the ISO 31000 risk management process in this collaboration between authorities and event organizers. Thank you.